so this is Teddy here, and it looks like we have another assignment due, which means that I will be looking at our game, our specific game, instead of two random games like the other assignment. I mean, again, okay, we're gonna try to look at this game objectively. The game itself is still in very rough stages. I mean, there's a few things worked out, but the end of the game is still unworked out, so that has been troubling us. But we'll get it done eventually. But as far as the assignment goes, I guess we'll start with the tetrad. So I mean, for the tetrad, the game is a game using the 4 elements of just mechanics, of story, of aesthetics, of technology. I mean, I'd say the game definitely is. Definitely technology. I mean, that's pretty much straightforward for anybody in the class, I would say. Obviously, that's going to be the computer and any Unreal assets that we're using. And if anybody's lucky, I'm sure they could take the game further and maybe put it on a console or something. That'd be fantastic. But I mean, as far as we go now, that's what we're gonna be doing. Definitely just using the computer and Unreal. And I mean, besides that, let's go with mechanics. I mean, the big thing about the mechanics in the game, and the one really big factor that will emerge the player into the game would be hopefully the stealth mode, which is gonna be, there's gonna be 3 basic mechanics that they're gonna be implemented. I mean, one's gonna be an inventory. Obviously, you need to pick up items and keep them. You need to be able to see them and stuff. So that's gonna be one. That's very basic. Another one is gonna be the combat system. Another very, very basic system. We had intended it to be maybe hand-to-hand or bow and arrow like combat system, but we're gonna stick with animations for like weapons, like guns and stuff like that. Only because it's a lot easier, especially with Unreal. It cuts our time down. But that besides the actual fighting mechanic, we have our stealth mechanic, which changes hopefully everything. I mean, that'll change how you play the game and how you kill, or well, not kill, but I guess eliminate certain characters or enemies in the game. How you get around certain paths or certain jungles. I mean, that's supposed to be a big part of it. It's if you kill an enemy and you get him from behind and you kill him stealthily without anybody seeing, you obviously won't attract any attention, and you'll be able to pick up the goal of it is to get new items, so be able to pick up certain drops from the character that you wouldn't have gotten if you just killed them straight on. So those definitely going to be the bigger mechanics of the game. I mean, besides that, the story and aesthetics. I mean, the aesthetics is the island itself. You're stuck on an island with oceans surrounded. I mean, that's just the sound of the ocean, of seagulls flying, of wind rustling. I mean, that alone is going to be very immersive. I mean, I would say, there's a lot of games that I've done it, but I mean, if you do it right, they could just sit there and leave the game on as background noise with the ocean going. I mean, a lot of people tend to really like that sound. I mean, it's hard to say that's the only thing on the beach that's going to be immersive, because like the rest of the beach is pretty much pathway towards the junction point of the game, which is where you're going to be able to get to the other parts of the game. If you look at my other post, you'll see how the map is laid out. But besides that, we have the rock level, the mountain level, which will hopefully have some sound effects, as in like rock crumbling or moving or something like that, so that it further puts the player into the shoes of the actual character. And then the story, I mean, it's very basic. It's stuck on an island. She's got to find her way through the island to the mountain pass to either get off or defeat the final boss or regain her memories. We're not really sure how the final level, final content of the game is going to be, but we'll figure that out. That's the one, little small detail we haven't finished. But I mean, besides that, pretty basic story. The only thing is, everything on the island is trying to kill you and whatnot, which that's obviously where the sneak and the combat factors come into play. So it's just, we're gonna leave it to the player. It's gonna be a little bit open world. We're gonna have note cards and certain items that you can pick up that further give you details about the story, about like what happened, the girl's memories, the island itself. Why is everything out to kill you on the island? Why no strangers, no one else on the island but you and the inhabitants? I mean, there's a lot that's been untold in the story, which I mean, hopefully the player want to like try to find out what happened. I mean, that's what we play games for. We're trying to find out the storyline, the world that we're submerged in, and we're trying to figure out why, what, how it works, everything that happens in it. So, you know, hopefully the player themselves gets very interactive with the game and wants to find all the hidden note cards. I mean, besides that, I mean, is there balance of the game? Is there properties that will bring you into the game? Yeah, definitely. I mean, besides the fact that there's story, and that there's fighting, and that there's scenery, I mean, the game itself allows you to just do whatever you want. You're on an island, you're pretty much open. I mean, there's certain paths that are going to be blocked only because of construction purposes when I was building the maps. Besides that, well, you basically do whatever you want. I mean, the storyline, if we're lucky, we get cutscenes in, which will only be triggered if you walk into certain areas. But I mean, besides that, you're just collecting items and learning the story. I think that alone, I mean, just to live off the land, make sure you don't die from random enemy spawning or something. I mean, that's pretty immersive in and of itself. I would hope that anybody that was stuck on an island would learn a little bit, at least from this game. You know, if you got to figure out a goal, you just get to the goal and survive until then. But I mean, besides that, this game is very playable. You can replay it over and over, and I'm not just saying like, you know, play the same thing, walk from the beginning to the end, and then that's it. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, with the different mechanics in the game, you can do the same level multiple ways. You can truck straight through it. You can attack every enemy and go through every cutscene as if like you're one straight arrow shooting straight at the finish line. Or you can do the mechanics of stealth. You can use those. You can deal with having to get around certain characters, not fighting certain characters, and for the explorers out there, they could just go not fight certain characters and try to find the hidden items in the game, the better weapons, the explosives. You know, instead of just going straight through with the pistol that you start at the beginning of the game with. I mean, there's just so many things that you could pick up that you would just miss if you did that. I think that would really, you know, have players come into the game and try to explore the world. And let's say, you know, if they're interested in what's out there and what items are out there, we'll definitely look around and look at the materials and the landscape, just because that's just natural. And I think that they'll be very pleased with what we have with the real time, with the day. I mean, you know, we're gonna have the night and day happening. So that'll be very nice. You know, if we're lucky, the characters will change, and instead of just looking forward, they'll have like some kind of flashlight or something. That way, you know which way they're looking. But I mean, that's gonna be it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good game. I mean, as far as like what I like and what I dislike of the game, I like the idea of the game. I like the stealth mode. It's very Assassin's Creed like. Which, I mean, those franchises have gotten ridiculous at this point. There's just so many games that it's just unreal. So they're kind of trying to bite off of that and go with that wagon. I mean, that's very nice. It's a good idea on our part. I mean, besides that, the whole idea of main character being stuck on an island and having to find little note cards, that is another part of the game that not many games I've tried recently. Nowadays, you pretty much told everything and you just go. Or it's Call of Duty where you fight a character and then you just go to the next game and fight someone else. I mean, this game, you have to explore. I mean, that's something that hasn't been seen in a little bit. So I mean, that's nice. There's another thing going towards it. But as far as what I dislike about the game, that's a tough question. I mean, I guess I dislike the lack of imagination in the game. And by that, I don't mean like what's going on in the game. I mean like there's no very eccentric things going on. There's no like alien spaceships crash landing, which we actually might do as the finishing thing, but that's a whole different idea. We don't have anything like demon lords, you know, flying up in the air, exploding nova bombs and unreal things. We don't have stuff like that. It's very low key and very realistic. in terms of what happens on the island. So I guess I dislike that, which is not necessarily a bad thing because every game has its own taste and whatnot. But that's just the type of games that I like, so I guess that's why I dislike it. But I mean, that being said, I mean, that pretty much covers all the basics. I mean, I think the game is pretty well rounded. Pretty simple idea. I mean, obviously the start of the game helped from the class game itself, and then we took from different games like Assassin's Creed and whatnot to get certain mechanics that we would like in the game, which is great. I mean, that's really what drove it home for us when we figured out that we wanted the stealth mechanic in it. But I mean, you know, that's pretty much it. That if the rest of the group decides to go with my idea, we may end up changing the game, unfortunately. You know, we had pitched the game in class, and you know, everybody in class kind of liked a little demo that we had of just shooting around and walking around with zombies. But you know, the professor even liked it. I mean, that being said, I think that a simpler game may be more playable in terms of a class. I think people in the class would appreciate a game that's a little more simpler, less open, as our game is, which is why we may end up changing our game to a completely different idea. And I mean, our new idea is completely different again, but it all depends if the group is willing to change it. If, you know, we're willing to just take 2 or 3 steps back and restart some of the things. Obviously, we're going to try to keep what we have and reuse it, but I mean, that being said, not everything can be used again, unfortunately. But again, it just depends if we're willing to you know, truck on through that, and I'm sure that the rest of the team either will be willing, and if they are not, we'll be willing to work out certain things that we're getting kind of stuck on in the game. But you know, again, we'll keep everybody updated, and I'm really having fun with this game. This class has been great. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And yeah, so stay classy, San Diego.